So my project was dealing or trying out peer reviews online. And I typically, when I teach, I don't like to do the synchronous thing just because I think it's easier for the student to just log in whenever they want to. So I'm teaching the Education 216 course, and I'm going to use all these people as guinea pigs, basically, is what I did.
What is Education 216?
It is called Assessment for Learning. So it's basically for instructors applying assessment techniques. And, yeah, how to give grades, right, Carl?
How to assess students.
It's not
Not how. That's all right.
He's the instructor. He wants it about giving out grades. That's
No,
it.
it's not. We pretty much got the message. It's not about numbers necessarily.
So I remember teaching a class years ago up at Western, and it was like 10 weeks, and within 1 week, we had like all these weeks, right? And then there was, I think, 2 assignments per week, and then I had 30 students, so it was like times 30, times 30, and then repeat that all the way along. And that's just a lot of grading.
Yeah.
And at my previous job, when I was down in Australia, one of the instructors piped up to the dean of the college that I was working in, and she's like, I have to do so much grading, there's just all this stuff that I need to work on. And he's like, well, you're the one who's assigning all of these things, so it's your own fault, basically. Which I kind of have to agree with. So for this course, there are 3 assignments total. And that's it. And that's the entirety of the grade. So I like the idea of doing iterative work. So we did a lot of drafts, not a lot, but for each one of these we did drafts of those assignments that we iterate through. So I will just go into the course here.
I'm going to restate that from the
Yeah.
student perspective.
Do it. Thank
There's
you.
a bunch of stuff to do, only 3 of which get graded. And to be honest, I stopped keeping track of which ones get grades later a long time ago. I mean, it's just like, okay, then we do this, then we do this, do this, do this, do this, and this. And sometimes I get numbers and it's all okay.
So
But
if you do this, it means it's not really graded, it's just.
I guess.
But I have to know what my grade is today.
Okay, but see, this is the edge that we've been kind of dancing with, is working with this culture of learning that students have gotten so trained that I need to get a grade, I'm going to do work, you're going to give me a score, and then I move on, and to shift even a little bit out of that is kind of interesting.
What was your incentive?
I wanted to learn about how to write a better outcome and assess it.
Perhaps you already have a well-developed inner locus of control.
I might, but I have an awful skill. I do not have a well-developed skill at writing good outcomes and assessing them.
And
I confess, I'm probably the worst one on campus.
You wanted to learn this because you felt deficient in this area.
Yeah. So I would have taught this course completely different if it were somebody else. But I knew it was instructors wanting to learn this stuff, and they're self-motivated, so I didn't need to worry
Some
about
of
that
us.
stuff. Well, some of us,
So is
yeah.
that
I won't
why
name names.
You only did the 3 assignments to assess all the things? Or, I mean, how does this speak to, because, I work with pre-college, and,
Yeah.
and they don't have self-discipline.
Oh, okay. So
how do you come up with
the
that?
reason that I did this is that I've got all of these outcomes that I want them to meet, all these things I want them to do, and I get 3 assignments, and I have all of these things that just sort of feed in. So they're doing one item, but through that one item, they're proving 20 different things to me.
Right.
So that's why.
Yeah.
So that's why.
That's the
Again,
part I haven't figured out what he's doing yet.
Well, that's
It's a
the
mystery.
thing. Stu has a way of doing that very, I think that you have thought ahead of what this is not just random. You picked these tasks that lead up to the culminating thing.
Yeah.
And it's very deliberate, and that's why you're trying to tell us to do this backwards design and all this stuff. That I'm like, I wrote it down and then I kind of went on in my business. Because it's very foreign to me, like I have all my outcomes. But it's kind of like hard to go back and upside down it.
Mm.
But I think it's kind of upside down, but I don't know, I feel it's so interesting to take the emphasis off the numbers, right?
Yeah.
It would be kind of cool.
You know, so I saw a presentation on biology at ATL one year, and they used case studies. You remember what I was talking about? Come watch my video. And so the case studies would, and then there's a way the instructor had, and I know it's a lot of work, but she would evaluate the knowledge and the application of this case study. And there was a certain form, and she had to teach them how to write a case study. I mean, how to write a response to a case study. And then she'd have a checklist that they knew it, but they'd also practice multiple choice questions as a group for fun.
Fun?
Well, you know, so they knew how to do it.
It's the
But
formative assessment.
Really,
Yeah.
it was more, that was very cool. So that's in a sense what you're,
Yeah,
it's
so-
like in writing, you know.
So
it's-
another way of looking at it is that like I see this as the course, as a graph, right? This is maybe proficiency,
Is it AP, sorry.
and this is just time. And when my students start, they're gonna be here, but when they're done, I want them to be here.
Right.
So with my assignments, all I do is this, and I just build and build and build. And so if I've got 3, 1, 2, 3 here, then I do drafts here. And maybe they'll start down here, maybe they'll,
Okay.
yeah, so
This- I
as
think
they
in
go
writing
through.
too. In writing, they're
Yeah.
always can improve it if their learning's easier.
So this is a way for me to actually do that online. So I've got assignments laid out. Let's see, I'll just go into modules. And I'll just use the first one. We did some course outcomes here. I think so I had this student faculty submit draft outcomes here, and I give them a rubric that is specific about what they're supposed to do. I'll make that bigger so you can see that. So first I basically give an overview of what they're supposed to be doing, and then I say that there's peer reviews. And below that, there's criteria for their submission, and I could even add a criteria to this rubric for doing their peer review if I wanted to. I could say like didn't complete, like gave feedback, something like that.
There's a lot of students who must do that.
Yeah. So the way that looks when they've submitted it is that I will give them feedback, and it'll show up in this little, can't really see it there, but make that smaller. There we go. It's like a mini discussion board in Canvas in each assignment submission, if that makes sense. So one student submits one thing, and that one thing associated with that one student has a mini discussion board. So you can go in and talk about it, and you can give reviews. And that's how it's implemented in Canvas. So in this one, this is Matthews. He submitted, I gave a comment, and then I assigned peer reviews, and it was like Tracy and somebody else, whoever that is, Barry, gave their feedback here. And so what that does for me is they can see this rubric, and I give them instructions on how to actually peer review. So I don't need to grade 30, or if I had more students, I don't need to go through and be the sole authority on what is good quality and what isn't, because everybody else has their own perspective and they can see what's expected. And did that help, Carl, do you think?
Yeah, but again, I'll be with Judy on the fact that not all of our students have the same level of skill to give each other feedback.
Yeah. So what I've seen people do is not so much verbal feedback, but they basically say, all right, students, use this rubric and fill out the rubric for your peers.
And that one actually, the Canvas rubric is kind of cool in that, okay, I'm gonna actually give you a grade on what I'm seeing you submit, and there's a little box that you get to make comments on each criteria. You can type in and say, you know, I can't read it from here, but on that first criteria, this is what I think. And then you move to the next criteria, give them a score, and you can give them a comment. And so they can go through how this peer evaluates them using the rubric and what they think about it. It doesn't have to be part of that discussion forum thread.
Yeah. So the way that's implemented is that when I create an assignment, I can just edit it, and then there's just a checkbox that says require peer reviews, and then manually assign or automatically assign. Automatically assign just basically does it like a robot. Whoever submitted stuff, it just assigns people on. I did the manual one just because, amazingly enough, the students in this class did not submit on time. So over on the right-hand side here, there's peer reviews, and then I would just assign. So it
And
looks
is it, do you get a number there? Is that a number box?
So yeah, I can say automatically assign 2 peer reviews, that's the automatic one, or because I set it to manual, I can assign peer reviews, that's the automatic one. But over here, under each person, so like Chris here, I can give Chris another person to submit to. And then so when they go into that assignment, I'm in the instructor view right now, but it'll show the people's names here. It's like you need to peer review Carl, or you need to peer review Tracy, somebody like that.
So if you assign somebody to review 2 peers.
Yep.
But the 2 peers that they've been assigned miss their deadline or don't do it, then you put the onus on the person reviewing to remind the people who are supposed to do the original work. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what prevents them from artificially giving each other high grades or giving each other low grades to somebody they hate? I've worked with an online class where the vitriol between students, in their little groups got out of hand. It had to be, it was
So what I did for that, I just kept track of who hasn't submitted, and I didn't allow that person the privilege of reviewing anyone else's.
Same people that write letters to
Oh, that's
the
a good
editor
idea.
and the.
And I think it handles that. I played with it in the automatic thing, and the automatic thing leaves out the people who haven't submitted,
Oh, wow.
and then they just get canned.
They're out of luck.
Yeah, they don't get peer reviews, and then you can go back and manually assign after they've submitted, of course. But yeah,
So is there a way, because I haven't seen it from this side, is there a way, okay, so I'm sorry, I only peer reviewed 1 person.
Yep.
I didn't get any points for doing a peer review.
No, you didn't. But I could give you points.
But you could, and then you'd have a little bit of an incentive. It's like if you don't do a peer review, then you get 0 points for this activity in the class.
So I did that on Angel with a discussion board, and you can just run a summary of who's done their 2 replies. I mean, sometimes I don't.
Checking that is sometimes really hard and takes a lot of time.
Well,
So if there's something that will automatically.
It tells you the
record-
number of how many replies. I mean, it may not be.
And this will tell you who's
Yeah,
done
when you
that
read them then.
feedback.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, the little,
Okay,
See, I haven't seen it.
Carl, you have
I haven't seen it from this one.
so that's not yet
Good, I'm not
completed, not yet completed.
Give Carl another submission,
I'll
please.
spot check them.
You finished that.
Well, I didn't do Chris.
You didn't do Chris, I don't know, it's all right, it wasn't graded.
Oh, it's the incentive.
They're all no grades.
I gotta sit closer and see what happens.
So yeah, so obviously, I mean, I think this is pretty powerful.
So that just shows you who's done their 2 peer reviews.
Yes, that's
Great, and
correct.
then the green means you've graded it or so, and the yellow,
That they have completed it,
that they have completed.
yeah.
then do you manually have to record that if you decide you want to give points for it?
I believe.
Or can you
Actually-
hook it to the grade?
Okay, so can I raise my hand?
Yes, you
Because
can.
I did give Chris feedback.
Oh,
So do you have to go back and see that I did?
maybe I do.
Maybe it was late.
Yeah, I wasn't so
That one I did.
and that could be it too. Because from my point of view, I wasn't so concerned about like checking to see whether you'd done it or not. I just cared that you were engaging in the course, and I could see. I went through everybody's assessments, and I could see that other people have submitted to it. So I wasn't going to give you a point, so I didn't really care.
All the truth.
The truth comes out.
See,
Yeah.
that's sort of what we were playing with in this class is how are we motivating students?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it, I'll jump through this hoop and you give me a point, and then, oh, but wait, you didn't give me my point for doing.
You didn't get a check mark, sorry.
Because we can certainly reinforce that mindset for our students, or we can kind of play around with a different way of doing it.
Does this kind of peer reviewing take comments and points, and does it do anything, say if,
So if
let's say that if a peer review, you said, well, rank this person's work on a scale of 1 to 5. Would it?
Yeah, so I'll
would it
show you what that
somehow do
looks like
something with
real
those
quick.
points?
I'm just gonna become you, Carl.
And when you look at the peer reviews, do you see the comments all under that one person?
Yes.
Here's your picture.
Oh, photogenic.
Yeah, nice picture.
Yay.
Okay, so you're in 216. And where was that?
There was that first one.
That was we're looking at the draft outcomes, right? Draft outcomes. So this is what it looks like for Carl. It says he turned it in at this time. This was his submission to the course. You can look at the details of that.
And you can click on what I submitted.
And I can click, there's a file there that I can, and it says assign peer reviews, Evan and Chris, right there.
So those are
And
the
then,
two
so
people
here are the
that
comments.
I evaluate,
Yeah.
right?
So those are Carl's comments on that person.
No, that's.
These are the comments for Carl's submission, because Carl is looking at his assignment here.
Oh, okay.
And so he can look at the details of that submission and see the
file.
file.
Oxford comma.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I submitted my comment to him in an audio format just because it takes longer to type. And then so this is what it looks like for him when he has to review people. He will see he basically sees the same thing that I do. So they'll see the submission, and then they can go down here and make a comment, and there's even a rubric. So if I wanted to, I could have had everybody fill out rubrics for each other, and that would give the points.
So you gave me 4 points for doing that.
Did you
For doing
find
this,
it?
for submitting the assignment, not for doing your review.
Okay, so you're evaluating my outcomes.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at, I'm the person that submitted an assignment, and so I'm gonna see my peers' evaluation of that assignment.
Yep.
Do I know who wrote those?
Yep.
Or is it,
There's a
can it
little
be
tag at the
anonymous?
bottom.
Yep, so this says by Stu at April 16th, 10:53 a.m., and this one says by Chris at April 18th.
And that was the only one, so he was the only other person that gave me a comment.
Yeah.
So whoever else was supposed to be reviewing me didn't do it.
Failed miserably.
So, would you make those
I mean, and I don't
anonymous?
know who it was. I don't know who you would assign.
No.
So I couldn't even go bug somebody.
No, you couldn't, because it's not on.
Because those are the two that
Those are the ones that you
So
were
now when you
supposed
click
to do.
on Chris,
Okay, so click on Chris's.
because now I'm gonna see Chris's outcome.
There you go. So
And-
that's what Chris wrote, and then this is
And then
where Carl would type his.
Well, no, it's, yeah, I did that.
You already did.
I made 4 points.
That's
Yeah.
Carl's.
But in the assignment, I made clear what I wanted. This is da, 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 da. And because this was the first assignment, I didn't really give that very detailed expectations for what those peer reviews entail, just to get them used to doing it. But in subsequent ones, I was a little more detailed.
Well, and they got better at actually, as I moved up that chart. Okay, I'm gonna I'm scrapping the first one completely and starting over, and here's my second shot at it.
And that's just my personal preference in teaching. I don't see that I do one thing once and that means I'm an expert. I practice and practice and get better at things, and that's what I try to do with this
Right.
course, is to do the iterative thing.
Continuous formative assessment. Continuous formative
Is that what
assessment.
they call it?
I'm reading, I have a book to read, it's on my stack.
That sounds like good nighttime reading.
It's a page turner.
So, can you make those those comments anonymous?
No.
No, that's too bad. Because I do peer evaluations on their group participation, but they better be anonymous.
Well, you don't, if
To
that's the
students.
case, just do a separate assignment. Just have an assignment where they submit to you and nobody else their review of these other people.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It doesn't need to be a peer review. Peer review is specifically for looking at an artifact. So
Okay.
Carl submitted his artifact and I wanted other people to look at that same artifact.
So if I have students submit evals to me, then is there a way, will it bunch them together so that I can see all of the people who evaluated Sandra, I could see those all together for Sandra?
There's probably about 3 to 4 different ways that you could do that in Canvas. It's just up to you how you set it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you want them to be anonymous between students?
Yeah, right.
So they're more honest that way, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Then
Oh,
they
so
don't get
then,
any-
so then you provide the person with the collection of comments that are anonymous?
Right.
Okay.
Or I summarize them and just tell them kind of.
One really simple way of doing that would just be to be like Sandra's reviews. Or like
Yeah, and then they just go into that.
And these are separate assignments.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if somebody worked with Sandra, then she would go into this one. But if she didn't work with Carl, then you wouldn't.
Okay.
That's just
That's a
a
good
really
idea.
simple way of doing it.
I've seen
Oh,
that too.
yeah, okay. I might talk to you about that for
Sure,
maybe.
yeah. The grade, I don't know about grading for that, so it's just an initial thing.
Yeah, okay.
So if you had a class of 30, you'd have to do 30?
30 separate assignments. But then you'd have to be like, well, this assignment doesn't count for that person, and
Yeah.
that sounds like a bucket of worms, yeah.